In this video, I'm going to go over how to identify the tree squirrels and the flying squirrel. So if you have a skin, it should be pretty straightforward. They all look very distinctive. This is Squirrel niger, fox squirrel. These are the ones that we have on campus. Orange belly, brownish back. Squirrel carolinensis, like Squirrel niger, a non-native squirrel that is found in some parts of Montana. White belly, gray back, and much larger than our red squirrel, which is really common out in the forest but you don't see in town very much. Reddish brown back, white belly, and smaller than the other ones. Flying squirrel, well, it's the flying squirrel. You can see the patagium there, the skin that it uses to fly, glide. So the skins are pretty straightforward. Then for the skulls, if you see one of these skulls, you know that it's a squirrel because of the post-orbital process and because it's cytomorphic. You know it's not a marmot or a chipmunk because of the size. You might even know that it's not a prairie dog by the size. You know it's a tree squirrel because these are parallel and this is relatively steep zygomatic plate. So now which tree squirrel is it? So keep in mind, you should go through this kind of decision-making process to start with, it's a rodent, it's a squirrel, it's a tree squirrel, now what? Well, if it's a large tree squirrel, GL 55 to 70, then we look at the teeth. These are our two large tree squirrels, the fox squirrel and the gray squirrel. And the gray squirrel has an extra tooth right at the very top of the cheek teeth, a little teeny tiny peg, not really a full-size tooth. This one doesn't have it, this one does. That's the distinction. If it is smaller, so 36 to 50, and it doesn't have the peg tooth, then that is a red squirrel. The flying squirrel is a little complicated because, as I mentioned in the tree squirrel versus ground squirrel video, the zygomatic arches of this flying squirrel are less parallel than other tree squirrels. So if you're looking at just the arches, it looks a bit more like a ground squirrel. One kind of unique thing about the flying squirrel, though, is that just before and just after the post-orbital process, it's kind of pinched in. So if you look in comparison to this red squirrel, where it's very broad, or even this ground squirrel here, you can see that it's really narrow, and it has this little slight indentation before and after the post-orbital process. That's going to be unique to the flying squirrel. And if you want to double check that you do indeed have a flying squirrel, it should have a little peg, first premolar, unlike the red squirrel. So on my notes up there, when I have plus P1, minus P1, that's what it's talking about here, is that peg tooth.